Hello, I'm Ben. Today we're going to be chatting about Nix and Kix with Julia Kessler. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Ben.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Nix and Kix is a soft drink startup based in the UK. It was founded in 2014 by Julia Kessler and Kerstin Robinson. So to get started, could you tell us a little bit more about Nix and Kix, Julia?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having us. So Kerstin and I, we started the company, like I said, in 2014. And as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm originally from Germany, and so is my co-founder. We actually moved to the UK many, many moons ago, and we actually happened to meet at the airport by chance at the same day when we were moving to the UK. And we've been friends ever since, and our journeys took us through various different companies. Kerstin was mainly focused on sort of corporate banking, and I ventured into tech. And we were always friends, and we always went out. And whenever we would go out and didn't want to drink alcohol, we didn't really like any of the options available in the market.
Right.
They were all full of sugar, full of artificial ingredients, or simply didn't taste very good. So that's when we thought we have to spice up the soft drinks market, and that is how Nix and Kix was born. We thought about ways how we can take all the rubbish out of drinks, which is the Nix bit in our name. So Nix in German means nothing. And then we thought about how can we spice it up, and what is a better spice than actually using cayenne? So that's why we're adding cayenne to all of our drinks, and that's the Kix bit in our name. So that is how the idea was born.
Okay, cool. So what was the hardest part when you got started? Like how did you get started actually?
We actually got started also a little bit because of the background I had, and Kerstin also did a lean startup sort of entrepreneurship degree, and then we reiterated a lot. So it wasn't a drink at the beginning, we made smoothies at the beginning, and then we just iterated our way through the product. We were initially making it in Kerstin's kitchen, and we're experimenting there, and then we would take it to lots of various different markets across London just to test different consumers. And then eventually we realized in order to scale up, we need a little production site. So we found the Salad Kitchen, which are now great friends of ours in East London, and then asked them if we could make the product in their kitchen and then in return sell the product in their venue. That also gave us our first sort of real customer and consumer feedback to be on a shelf. And then from there, we scaled up more and more and more. But that is how we started, just in Kerstin's kitchen, and then sold it in markets.
So now, how are the roles kind of separated between Kirsten and yourself?
So at the beginning, I guess you learn. So at the beginning, we were doing a lot of things, or pretty much everything together. But then we sort of realized our natural strengths. So Kerstin is, given her background from corporate finance, she's really, really good at finance and analyzing the numbers. So she looks after finance. But then she's also super creative, and she cares a lot about the brand. So that's why she's looking after finance, branding, and marketing. And then my passion is selling. I really enjoy that. And my background is operations. So naturally, I look after sales and operations. And then NPD, we always do together.
Okay, cool. So who are your customers? Who are you selling the product to?
Well, now initially it was only like coffee shops and delis and smaller outlets. But now we're selling to anyone from a Mandarin Oriental to Tesco's and Waitrose, Ocado, Wagamama, Nando's. So the list is long. So we have what we call a multi-channel strategy.
Okay.
So we look after lots of different types of customers.
I understand that you do all part of the production for your product, and so you have your laboratories in Germany?
No. So we actually do have so we outsource. So we have a manufacturer also.
Okay.
And they make the product for us. And so we have somebody in the UK and then also somebody in Austria who's helping us with that. And yeah, so we outsource all of that. We manage it, but we have somebody who's helping us with that.
Right. So the way you work with your manufacturer is you provide a recipe and...
Exactly. Yeah.
And in terms of the distribution?
Distribution, we do, we have a third-party logistics provider, so that's a warehouse, but we manage the warehouse and we manage the order processing.
And then you ship all over the UK?
All over the UK, into Europe. We're also now partnering with Amazon, so we do quite a bit on Amazon as well. So
okay,
yeah, we keep ourselves very busy.
And do you mostly sell via kind of directly to customers, or is it mostly B2B?
It's mostly B2B. Yeah, it's mostly B2B. We only really just started with direct to consumer because of the current climate. So we scaled that up now. So now we're actually reaching more direct consumers, but yeah, it's mostly B2B still.
Okay. And so you mentioned also that at the beginning you started with kind of coffee shops and small delis. Is this really how you managed to kind of start to sell your first products? And do you think... Okay.
Yeah, you have to knock on a lot of doors.
Right. So you went out walking to
I went out walking with my backpack and all my glass bottles in my backpack, and sometimes regretted why I didn't create something like popcorn because it was really heavy.
Okay.
But yeah, at the beginning, it's literally just you have to knock on doors.
So I'm trying to understand, how does this fit in your professional experience? How did you decide it? I mean, I understand that you were passionate about making those drinks and making healthy drinks. But when did you actually decide that this was something that you were going to do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I guess when was the moment? I guess I was in between jobs and had quite a lot of different job offers and things I could do. And Kerstin also just recently quit her job she always was passionate about starting something herself. And then we thought, well, why don't we start it together and give it a go? And we didn't know anything about the industry or the products or what it would entail to actually make something. We just knew that we need to make something better than what's currently available in the market.
When you get started in this, with your kind of background, like what are some of the difficulties that you started to face?
Oh, loads. I mean, so many, because obviously my background was operations and manufacturing, was what I always knew, but it's so different making a mobile phone to actually produce a drink in a can. It's
definitely
very, very different. And it was just really complicated because we couldn't find a manufacturer who would take us on because we were too small. Getting money together to even invest into your first production run was very difficult. It was a real challenge. I never sold before. I was never in selling before, so I had to learn all of that from scratch. But I guess when you're passionate and you're driven and you believe in your product, and we make amazing products. I know exactly what's in the product and I drink it every day still because I really like it. And I know what's inside. And I guess then it's easy. You have to really believe in what you're doing. And then it's really easy to win clients over.
And yeah, I completely understand that. It's really important to be passionate about what you're doing if you want to do it well. When you started, did you also find some hurdles in terms of compliance? I'm thinking about health and safety, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, that is probably the bit which surprised me the most, which is actually very easy to make a food and drink product in the UK. There
Right.
aren't
Okay.
too many hurdles. It's actually scary because when I make a mobile phone that is made in the right room, it's completely dust proof and stuff. And some of the manufacturing capabilities I've seen in the UK, I probably wouldn't want to eat or drink a product out of those facilities. It's actually quite surprising. So yeah, no, so that wasn't the challenge. The challenge is more product stability. So because we were naively thinking, the product which we made at the kitchen table is really easy to make that scale up and, build it from like making 200 bottles in one go to 2,000 to 20,000. And that is not straightforward. We had, right at the beginning, we had a blood orange and turmeric variant. And we didn't realize that obviously blood oranges are very, very seasonal. So we built a whole product line, and then we wanted to produce our next batch. So we were going out to buy blood oranges, and then there were no more blood oranges because the season was over. Which is obvious now, right? But at the time, we're like, oh, yeah, we didn't consider that, right? So these are the sort of things which you just don't know at the beginning, and had to learn from scratch, seasonality of ingredients, and how to make a product stable and last and taste good over a longer period. Like that is actually really, really complicated.
Right. So you had to adapt quite a lot your recipe in order
A
to.
lot, yeah.
Okay. Would they be things that you would do differently now looking back?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to really, which is really difficult when you start out because you don't know which challenges you're gonna face. But I think my top tip for everyone would be to really understand your customer. And the mistake we made at the beginning, as probably most people, we said, oh, our product is for everyone. It's for everyone. It's for every occasion. You can drink it in the morning, during lunchtime, in the evening. You can drink it on its own. You can mix it. Like, there are all those amazing things you can do. But if you're not focused on your specific customer, it makes it really, really difficult. Once you actually make that choice, and making that choice is very difficult, it's been really easy to see the opportunities in the market. So that is definitely a big learning. The other big learning was, especially if you make a food or drink product, is it's been so hard to find good manufacturers who partner with you. Very, very, very difficult. So whatever your idea is, that is where I would start. Like, looking back, that is definitely where I would start. I wouldn't start at the markets where we started. I would actually start, can actually somebody make that for us?
Okay.
And because that's been one of the biggest challenges in the first couple of years.
In tech, we often have this concept of lean startup, where it's really important to start little and to really understand, as you say, your customer, and then to try to iterate very quickly on it. Did you apply some of those concepts when you started Nix Kix?
We did, yes. But it's actually very interesting because in the UK, everybody is so polite, right? Super polite. And I learned a lot about the English language through that process. So at the beginning, when we were selling our drinks in the market, and we had customers to try all of our different products, they would always come and say, oh, it tastes very interesting. And Kerstin and I, we both thought, well, we're onto a winner. They all find it very interesting. It took us a few attempts to realize, oh, that's not a good thing. Oh, okay. So then what we did is that we had another friend, and we positioned our friend behind so he could see the interaction with the customers. And he would then record the facial expressions when we would turn around. Because it's amazing how much you can convince people to buy your product, even if they don't like it, just because they feel a bit sorry for you. So we had quite a few. I feel a bit sorry for you, so I buy your drink so you feel better, and I can actually go. But they actually didn't like it, so our homemade creations weren't necessarily something you would want to drink now. And that was quite tricky. So applying Lean Startup is quite difficult. But what we've done is we mocked up bottles, we put it on Tesco shelves, and we would watch people just take it off and then ask them why they picked it up. So there are certain things we can do, but the bit which I'm really missing from actually running a tech company, you can test and learn so much faster because you can modify your different branding and messaging really fast. But then if I have to make so many different cans, I have to produce 250,000 in one go.
Right. Yeah.
You have to sell them through first before you can think about maybe adjusting your messaging on pack a bit. So that's been a little hard.
And when it comes to scaling, did you have particular difficulties? You mentioned about going from the homegrown operations to actually selling to more shops, but and you mentioned that as part of this, having a good manufacturer was really helpful. Is there some other difficulties that you've found?
Money. It's definitely money because, like I said, I have to buy 250,000 cans per flavor. That's a lot of capital, which is suddenly locked in your warehouse. So that's why you have to be very strategic. We don't just launch a new flavor just for the sake of it, because every new flavor would mean capital locked up in a warehouse. And that's been quite a big learning. So the more you scale, the more stock you need to be ready for scaling up, which means more capital is locked up in your warehouse. And that's something to be really mindful of when you build a business like that.
And I imagine that also because of this is just as hard if you need to pivot in terms of product as well.
It is quite hard, although my advice would always be don't be afraid to pivot. So we sometimes waited a little bit too long with things. Now we become a little bit faster. You really learn, and we pivoted a couple of times. So right at the beginning, our drinks were still, and they were juice based, and they had a slightly higher sugar content, natural sugar content compared to now.
Okay.
And then after the first 2 years of selling that product, we completely changed the recipe, and it's now lightly carbonated, and we reduced the sugar content and made the product vegan, which was a leap of faith at the time as well. So we made a lot of adjustments, and that really paid off. So yeah, and since then it really fundamentally changed our business. So it's always good to pivot if you feel like it's not working 100%.
So in terms of failure, at the beginning, you kind of mentioned that you made your product for everyone, and you mentioned that you had difficulties also getting customer feedback. Is there some sort of example of failures that you faced?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think because at the beginning we thought like, oh, our product is for everyone, everybody should like it. We literally tried to sell to everyone as well. So we tried to sell to the 5-star hotels as well as the little corner shops in the streets of London, and that just doesn't work out, because when you're not focused, and what we failed because when you actually suddenly build it up to a very, very good level, you then have to maintain those customers. So they don't automatically order your drink again, right? They just set it through, and if it's not on shelf anymore, they just put something else there. And you actually have to physically go back into the store and visit your customer and be like, oh, you're running low, put another order in. And that's very, very time consuming. So obviously, which is very pivoted and away from not difficult customers in the sense that the customer is difficult, but difficult to maintain. So then we became a bit more laser focused on where it makes sense to actually go after new business. And then that created a much better return on investment for us.
Yeah, I imagine otherwise it would cost you a lot of time.
a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of resources needed for that. Yeah.
In terms of understanding the market, did you have to spend a lot of time actually to figure out what was the market like and how you could differentiate yourself within this field?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from a get-go, we differentiated ourselves by adding chili to a drink. And that was actually really hard, and it's still hard at times. People are still saying, like, why are you putting chili in a drink?
Have you been to Mexico?
No, not yet.
Chili in beer, they do this a lot.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I guess that is another watch out, right? Like at the beginning, we've been told by so many people, we're putting too much chili in it, we're not putting enough chili in it, we shouldn't put any chili in it. Like, oh my God, what are you doing? So that's so crucial, because you have to really stick to your guns a little bit as well, and trust your intuition at the beginning. And for us, it's really easy to differentiate ourselves from the competitors because we are the only drink with chili in it. And every single variant we bring out has chili in it. And we are now known for the drink with chili in it.
Okay.
And that's good, and there will be always people who tell you, oh, don't put chili in it, put something else in it, or don't put anything in it, but the key is really to stick to your guns, and that will differentiate yourself.
Now, looking at the market from a wider perspective, do you see a lot of innovation at that level, especially in terms of soft drinks?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, drinks is incredible. There's so much NPD, so much. It's incredible. There are, I don't know how many different kombucha brands. There are lots of drinks now with CBD. There are drinks coming out with, they're called seltzers, which is basically sparkling water with flavors. There are hard seltzers, which is exactly that, but with alcohol. So there's a lot of innovation coming, and that's good and bad. I mean, it makes the category very, very busy, but it also provides a lot of innovation for the consumers. And that's great, because that drives consumers into the category.
So we're talking about innovation in terms of product itself, but also I'm thinking in terms of packaging. And an example that I have seen is HelloFresh. So that we have in the UK. So basically, you only order a couple of fresh vegetable and ingredients, but it's on a weekly basis, and it arrives with a recipe that you follow, and then you produce a meal. And this is just taking the same ingredients as usual, but packaging it completely differently and making a new product out of it. Like, do you see something similar in the drink industry?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few. There's quite a few innovation going on. There's one brand. They have, for example, sugar in the cap, like the syrup in the cap, and then you can twist it. It's called Colibri, and you can twist it, and then you can sweeten it to your flavor profile. That's probably the biggest sort of packaging innovation I've seen. And then there's another brand called Cano Water, and they were the first ones to put sparkling water and still water in a can, but the seal is resealable, so you can actually open and close it.
Okay.
And that was probably one of the latest innovation in packaging in drinks. So yeah, so those two, but it's not very common, because obviously minimum order quantities are always really, really high, and it adds complexity to the manufacturing process. So that's why innovation isn't as prominent as maybe in food and drink, and as maybe in food.
In terms of the market itself, I mean, the big players are just very known to everyone, like Coca-Cola. I know about them. I often just drink it. Do you feel like there's going to be more and more space for new innovative products like yours?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have a role to play, because like I said, innovation attracts consumers, and that's good for the category overall. And also, I feel there's a big trend towards consumers wanting to support innovative brands and new brands, and consumers are now a lot more engaged with brands which are sustainable and ethical and have a good purpose, and they like to support them. So actually what you can see is that, Coke and Pepsi, they will always be around, but they have faced declines because actually smaller challenger brands are starting to eat up into their market value, which is great.
In terms of services around this, and I'm thinking about suppliers and also in terms of manufacturing, do you feel like you also have the required services that you need in order to build this this kind of company?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Is because obviously at the beginning you work off a spreadsheet, right? Spreadsheet and Google Docs and Word documents and things like that. And then eventually you get a software for accounting, and there are a lot of tools. But I guess because we're a startup, we work off Slack. We don't really communicate much over email anyway, and we use Zoom a lot, and so we're quite. And I guess that is true for most startups. They're quite innovative in the tools they're using anyway. The key is really then is the moment that you might want to actually optimize the processes and the tools a little bit more, and not to miss that point. Then it's the optimal point, because you don't want to do it too early when you're just growing, but you also don't want to do it too late when it's too big, and it becomes really, really hard to do that. And there's probably no magic bullet. We're now 5.5 years old, so for us is now the time to actually consider that.
When making decisions in software, we have a lot this this concept of data-driven decision.
Yeah.
And is it something that you're actually able to apply?
100%. We're 100% data-driven, and I think it's so crucial. So I look at my rate of sales. So in drinks or in food and drinks, the key number is rate of sales. So that basically means how many units per week per store do you sell per variant, and we look at that once a week. And I look at that for all my Tesco stores, all my Waitrose stores, all my Sainsbury's stores, and that's really, really crucial, because you need to understand what's happening in the category. How do you perform against the competition? Who's buying you? So so when you shop in Tesco, you obviously use a club card, right? The little membership card.
Yeah.
And that is obviously data which brands like us can buy. And then I know who is buying my product. And obviously that's important, because then I can think about specific marketing strategies around that. So yeah, data is massive for brands like ours.
Oh, and you have all the tooling as well to be able to access it.
Oh, we actually just use Data Studio.
Right.
So we pull the data, like the data comes in various different shapes and forms. None of the retailers are consistent, unfortunately. And then we have a little wizard in our team, and he pulls it all together.
When engaging with new customers and new businesses in order to sell your products, is it quite consistent the way you approach them, or do you often have to find a new way to engage with them?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you have to find a new way how to engage with them all the time.
Okay.
I think if it would be unified and if it would be easy, there would be a lot more competition in the market.
Yeah.
But no, you have to find a new angle, and you have to really understand your customer. So especially the bigger guys, the bigger brands out there, if you want to partner with them, you have to really understand them. You have to understand inside out what are they currently stocking, what are their big strategies, what are they focusing on, and how can you help them to achieve their targets. And that's different for every single player in the market. And then we also have range windows. So, and they're not aligned. So, somebody like, I don't know, Asta would range new products at a different time to Waitrose, to a different time
Okay.
to Kessler's. It's not aligned. It's always different.
You recently raised some investment.
Mhm.
What are the next steps for Nix Kix now?
Yeah, so actually very exciting. We have a rebrand coming up, which unfortunately can't show yet, but will come out later this year. So that's something really exciting which we've been working on. But then it's really investing in growth. So we have a very ambitious plan and very ambitious numbers we want to hit. And for that we want to use some of that capital. So some goes into working capital and some is actually for investing in growth.
Great. And final question, if you had a particular advice to give to somebody who was to start another drink, another drink startup, what would it be?
You always need a lot more money than you initially think you would need. so always be prepared for that, and just be ready to work hard and have some fun.
Thanks a lot for your time, Julia. And I wish you all the success for Nix Kix.
Thanks, Ben. It was nice to speak to you.